we should be thinking about what we can do in customer success, not from the vendor point of view, but from the customer point of view, and really empowering customers to become autonomous in their own generation of their success, right? So I think that's where we're moving to right now. And as I just said, I think especially now that customers really understand how important this digital transformation is, because it has helped us so much over the last year, that they just want to get on and do things for themselves. They don't want to be spoon-fed.
Hello and welcome to a whole new episode of Engati CX. I'm your host Aish, and we're really glad to have you all join us today. On this show, we talk to CX and technology experts from around the world. We explore and uncover and share new insights on creating experiences that your customers will remember and look forward to. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code digital CX platform, available across 14 channels with 45,000 solutions created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by Inc. magazine, Tech World, CIO magazine, and many others. We run the Engati blog, video channel, and the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards of 400,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest. Sue is the co-founder of Success Chain and a passionate customer success leader in Europe. She has initiated several events for customer service professionals to share and learn. Customer Success Europe, Engage Paris, meetups in Paris and Lisbon. She has founded Success Track Enterprise, which provides CS advisory and mentoring services. Sue's passionate about the human promise of the digital revolution and is keen to play her part in concentrating on what's most important. That is the customer progress and companies reaching out and surpassing expected outcomes, resulting in success for customers and vendors alike. So welcome to the show, Sue. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you. Me too, Aish. Thank you very much for a very warm welcome. And it's a pleasure to be with you. It really is. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. So before we dive into our interview with Sue, don't forget to subscribe to Engati and tap the bell icon to get access to exclusive content from thought leaders from around the globe. So our first question for you, Sue. What is digital Darwinism and how is it helping customer success?
Yes, great question, Aish. I actually wrote an article on this subject because I've always been very passionate around Darwin. And digital Darwin is really when companies simply cannot keep up with all the digital transformation which we're facing right now, and their existence is simply threatened. So really what we need to do is to adapt permanently in order to not only survive but also thrive. Otherwise we'll be in the predicament where we're simply threatened to be left behind. And in my consultancy days, I was a change management consultant before I got into customer success. And I was always passionate around Darwin. So I used to quote him all the time, the very famous expression, it's not the strongest species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but it's the one that is most adaptable to change. And I think that really resonates. There's even an article which I wrote where I introduced my little pet chameleon, which is called Adaptus Rex, which I talk about. And I think it's really important, even more so, in the current context that we've been all subject to over the impact of COVID in the last year, where we've really seen those companies who've been able to really adapt according to the different changes, and to really help them either to survive or thrive. And also for customer success teams who've been able to adapt what they are delivering, not only in terms of services, but actually feeding back into their companies, around new product features, new services. So it really is about adapting. And, right now we're hearing a lot about, obviously, new technology. We're talking about artificial intelligence and what role that is going to play. Machine learning, big data, the Internet of Things. Then we're talking about, the companies who are actually, let's say, challenging the status quo. We've even got this word Uberization, like the Ubers of the world, the Spotifys. And all that is really an example of what we're talking about in digital Darwinism. What I really like around this terminology, digital Darwinism, just the word suggests that it's technical, when in actual fact it's not. The real challenge around all this digital adaptation to what we're challenged with in current world is about people, and it's about culture, right? And even the person who, let's say, started to vulgarize the term digital Darwinism, he was called Tom Goodwin, who you've probably heard of. And he said exactly that. He said digital Darwinism depends 99% on culture and people. So I really love that quote. And this is why I'm in customer success, in fact, because customer success really is about the human side of change and the human side of transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we've seen over the last year really throws digital Darwinism in a two-way street situation, because we've seen, because of the fact that we've probably accelerated the digital transformation by 5 years over the last year, the crucial role that customer success has played for that. I've even heard companies saying, now we really understand what customer success is all about. All of a sudden, it's become a strategic pillar of our company mindset. So that's how I think customer success has been, I think, propelled into the limelight. And in the same way, thanks to customer success, we're actually enabling, empowering customers to actually adapt even faster to that digital transformation.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah,
I have heard this quote so many times and I stand by it every time, but it really is survival of the fittest. And right now, our mode of survival is obviously driven by something monetary. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but it's how we're sort of adapting that. And one of the things that we have to do is adopt a digital strategy. Otherwise, at least right now, no one's going to make it, for lack of a better word.
exactly. No, it's exactly that. And yeah, make it. Yeah, it's a question of not not just survival, but also to thrive and go there beyond. So even before we had COVID, we're having that with all the surge of all those different, I would say, those technical things that I was talking about. But I think it's more than just technical, artificial intelligence, etc. It's also about the fact that we're doing business differently.
Mhm.
So the whole way of doing business is different, and that's where customer success resonates so
Mhm.
much.
Yeah, and
Yes.
there were some
Mhm.
definite trailblazers in the past. Like I think one of the best is Netflix and Spotify and even Amazon. Like they really they started personalizing from a very long time, and now people are starting to realize how much of an impact that has on customers.
Exactly. And that personalization is so important going forward.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So my next question for you is, what's the importance of strategic foundations for creating a customer-centric culture to successfully implement customer success?
Yes, that's another great question. And I think what's really important to understand is when you're actually implementing customer success, a lot of the time we just approach it as yet another functional silo, which we're kind of parachuting onto the existing silos of the
Mhm.
company, which have been there traditionally for years. And I think what's really important, for customer success, is that it is in itself a transformation of the company. It's a transformation of the way of doing business. I think it's really important for companies to understand that.
Mhm.
So, actually embracing customer success and actually embedding customer centric culture, so that it's actually running through the veins of your company, is so important. And I think that's really why we have to approach customer success right top down, with all the different, C levels, the executives, having their buy-in to make sure that everybody becomes customer centric, and that in fact customer success is understood as this cultural and strategic mindset, and it's not just another functional silo which we're actually parachuting onto the company. That's so
Mhm.
important. And in fact, I've actually drawn up a framework around this subject. So my framework, is called CS Opt-in. So it's all an acronym and it's a play on words, of course. So the CS part is, I would say, the cultural and strategic part. C meaning customer centricity, and the S meaning the strategic layers that we're actually going to be putting in across the service alignment, which I was referring to, so that everybody's aligned, and it's coming from the C level, it's coming from the executives to make sure that everybody's aligned. So that's the CS part, which is the strategic and cultural part. And then the opt-in part, again, it's a play on words because we want your customers to opt in for life thanks to their investment. And the opt-in is more the operational aspect of the implementation of the strategy. And opt-in means organization, process, tools, information, and integration.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you haven't got those strategic and cultural, customer centric, and service alignment foundations in place, then you'll never be able to implement all those operational opt in elements of the framework.
Mhm.
So it really does take a village to make sure that that happens, right?
Yes, definitely.
Hmm.
I've seen this quote floating around where people talk about how customer centricity, in a way, is kind of like the oxygen for any organization. So I think that kind of quote kind of really applies here, but obviously it is a challenge. So you mentioned the CS opt-in framework, but do you have any strategic pillars of customer centricity and service alignment?
Yes. So if we want to take a little dive into those two pillars of customer centricity
Yes.
and service alignment, because those are the backbone, right, of holding everything else up from an operational point of view. Um, I have actually written an article on this as well, so you can actually see the details of this. But just to probably simplify, just for today's purposes, there are 5 pillars of what I call customer centricity. And the first one is really, it's as I mentioned, the first one is really ensuring that the C level, the executives, understand what customer centricity is and why it's important for their company to survive and to thrive going forwards, and what that means for their company, right? So it is part of the strategy. So they should be empowering that so that it really does become this kind of blood which is running through the veins of the company. You mentioned oxygen, I talk about blood running through the veins of the company. So they need to define what customer centricity means for their company, need to have a statement about that. And they also need to make sure that every internal role, so whether it's customer success, whether it's sales, whether it's product, whoever it is internally, they know exactly what actions they should make in order to really drive that customer centricity, and that they are actually, even if they're not directly customer facing roles, that they know exactly what they can do to contribute to that. So that's the first thing, top down buy-in. The second pillar for that customer centricity is for all these actors to know their customers inside out, so that they know exactly what is driving the customer to make their investment, why the customer has made that investment, what are their pain points. And because we've seen over the last year, those pain points a year ago are probably different to the pain points that those customers are having now. So you need to anticipate that and really be the radar, listening to your customers actively all the time in order to be able to adjust, adapt, accommodate your product, accommodate your services, accommodate your communication all the time. That's so important. And in order to do that, the only efficient way of doing that, obviously, is to listen and to have data. So data is so key. So when you have data which you're receiving through oral feedback, or whether you're having data which is received through some kind of digital triggers, then you need to really capitalize on that data permanently in order to
Mhm.
be on top of your subject. A third element of that customer centricity is to really make sure that you have customer experience principles which are running through your company. So that really means having a very outside in approach to mapping your customer journey. So it means, first of all, understanding, as I said, what your customers need, and then doing some reverse engineering so that everything your company across all the different roles which you've identified is actually doing something to make sure that those customer needs are met. And what is really important as well is not only have this customer experience principles running through your operationalization, but also customer success principles as well. And I think often, we have customer success and customer experience, and it's often, again, like two separate silos within a company instead of joining forces, because a lot of what they're doing is overlapping anyway. So
Mhm.
you should be joining forces between customer experience principles and customer success
Mhm.
principles. Um, and then I think the other fourth pillar is to really help customers to define what are their expected results, right, from their investment. And I think a lot of the time that's something which customers find very challenging to articulate. You can have a very macro statement. Yeah, I want to be more productive. I want to make more money, or whatever it is. But that's very high level. So I think one of the roles in customer success is to be able to really help your customers to express that, but also to actually implement tactics to be able to measure that as well. So that's really important. And then last but not least, of course, is how do we embrace customer success principles with all that? So again, the top level, the executives should be expressing a mission statement around what customer success is, how all of the internal roles are actually contributing to customer success, and really make everybody internally understand that there are two sets of clients. You're the internal clients, and how those internal roles, sales, customer success, product, can all help each other to better do their jobs, but also, as a consequence of doing that, of course, um, getting together in synergy across all these roles to make sure that you're meeting the ever changing needs of your customers. So it's really important for your customers to ensure you're enabling them to really, let's say be autonomous in their own measurement of their own adoption of the tools that they're investing in, but also the results as a consequence of using those tools. So that's really important. And the service alignment, that again, I think it's a challenge to get everybody to work in sync. It really is. But I think that's one of the, I think, the biggest shifts for companies to actually get people to finish once and for all working in silos and to work in sync together. And I think that again, it means that the top C level should make sure that happens.
Mhm.
And to do that, they really need to design the whole experience, the whole customer journey collaboratively, and not do it like in silo again. And make sure that all the, not only the product, but all the services associated to the product, the whole customer experience and everything is designed in sync across all those internal roles, so that each and every milestone of the customer journey, everybody's aligned on what should be the outcome for the customer and what should be the experience for the customer.
Mhm.
So a lot to do, right?
Yes, definitely. But I think
Yeah.
all at we can all handle it at bite-sized pieces, you know. The You mentioned goal setting. I feel like that's so important. I think a lot of people, a lot of organizations kind of get lost in the high-level goals that we should be nailing down and going on those micro levels, like things like turning, making customer satisfaction a priority, or ROI or something like that, you know. I think it
Yes.
is very.
Yeah, it is. And I think, when we're talking about goals and metrics and KPIs, what you mentioned, I think a lot of the time it's probably more of the lagging KPIs, which, we're defining because those are the ones that most companies are using. Whereas in actual fact, in order to be pragmatic, the more short term and leading KPIs are something which we should probably be trying to implement, because it's easier to measure,
Mhm.
and it's easier to, well, certainly from a short term point of view. And I think, because we're saying we have to align all the different roles internally to have this service alignment, those leading KPIs can be different for each of those individual roles,
Definitely.
but each of those KPIs is actually contributing to a bigger picture, a bigger Northern Star, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think a
Hmm.
lot of businesses also just get lost in, like, these businesses are focusing on this, so I have to focus on that. But I
Yeah.
think every business's journey is very different in
Yeah.
a similar sense of like customer journeys, as you mentioned in the third step of your framework, I believe.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So
Yeah.
going back to this, what are engagement models and how can we map customer journeys with them?
Yes, and engagement models it's really important from a customer success point of view, and from a customer experience point of view. And usually, what happens is, first of all, you decide what are your segments, what are the customer segments, and what are the related journeys in association with those segments. And then once you've got the customer journey mapped out, you can then start to think, okay, how can we put into place an engagement model based on these, either this customer journey or a variant of the customer journey, depending on the different types of customers that you're serving, right? So an engagement model really is, it's a deliberate schedule of how you're going to actually interact with the customer through a series of what is commonly known as touch points. But these touch points, they can either be human interaction or they can be a digital interaction. So you're basically saying, okay, what do I need to do in order to ensure that my customers are going to achieve their expected results at each of those milestones of the customer journey? And so I do have a framework for mapping out customer journeys, which is composed of 7 bricks. And basically, without going into the detail now, but basically what I do is, I start out with the segmentation. A lot of the time, segmentation is usually articulated as being something like high touch, medium touch, and low touch in the customer success world. Um, I don't like that terminology, to be quite honest, and I prefer to say, right, the segmentation is ideally mapped out based on your knowledge of what your different customers want to achieve. So I have kind of a persona approach for segmentation, and then do this retro engineering based on the needs of the persona, and the segmentation is determined based on the persona needs. Once we've got the segmentation, and map out the customer journey, and the customer journey which is applicable to different segments, with kind of a Pareto principle, where you have variance, depending on specific needs, but 80% of it could be the same. You just have a variant of 20%. And then once you've mapped out the customer journey, then you start to say, right, what does this customer need in terms of engagement model along the different milestones? And I think that's really important to do it that way, because a lot of the time we're doing in a way that we are, first of all, looking at our own internal processes, how we are organized, what are the processes around the opt-in that I mentioned, and then we're imposing that onto the customers, right? And in fact, it should be the other way around. So in fact, the opt-in element, which I was talking about earlier, the opt-in element should be the last part of the framework. It's a consequence of having mapped out everything from the customer point of view. Now, in terms of engagement model, I did mention you can have a human touch or you can have more digital touch. The wording which we often use in customer success: high touch, medium touch, and low touch. Low touch I don't like at all, because low touch implies that it's some kind of lesser value that you're actually delivering to your customer, almost as if that customer doesn't deserve as a bigger treatment as probably another customer, and which shouldn't be the case, of course. But of course, obviously, to be economically viable, you cannot roll out the red carpet for all of the customers. But this low touch terminology, I think we should even replace that now and probably use something like digital empowerment. I think that's a much better term, because I think one of the things which is changing right now, and it's probably an impact of COVID again, is that I think customers are actually more at ease with this digital touch. I think before, it was probably sniffed at as being a kind of ersatz experience, as a kind of second best experience. And probably customers originally thought, oh, I'm just getting these automated emails. And so it probably felt like a bit of a lesser experience. Whereas now, because of this digital acceleration, which we mentioned at the beginning, I think that customers are actually expecting that companies do have these digital empowerment touch points, if you like, but as long as they are of a high quality, and as long as you get the right message at the right time. If you're getting the right message at the right time, I think customers are welcoming digital enablement with open arms, because they don't want to be spoon fed. They don't want to necessarily be talking to a customer success manager every day or every week or whatever. They
Mhm.
want to be autonomous. They want to be able to do things by themselves. So I think that's really important in terms of this enablement, engagement model to really take seriously this, let's say, this digital empowerment. I think that's the next stage.
That was very interesting, Sue. Thank you for sharing that with us.
It's a pleasure.
So, moving on to my final question, are there any sound bites you'd like to share with our audience?
Oh, there are lots, Aish. But I think we only have one, right, for today's purposes. Yes, I would just like to say that obviously we've all seen how much customer success has been accelerated over the last years, and particularly over the last year because of the impact of COVID,
Mhm.
as we mentioned. And I think, up until now, a lot of the focus that we've been having in the customer success world has really been very much from the point of the vendor. How can we scale teams? How we can grow teams? How can we organize teams and probably have speciality kind of customer success roles, right? But I think based on what we've just been talking about, I think what is really now emerging is that we should be thinking about what we can do in customer success, not from the vendor point of view, but from the customer point of view, and really empowering customers to become autonomous in their own generation of their success, right? So I think that's where we're moving to right now. And as I just said, I think especially now that customers really understand how important this digital transformation is, because it has helped us so much over the last year, that they
Mhm.
just want to get on and do things for themselves. They don't want to be spoon fed. So I think that's really important. And I think there are different ways of for customer success companies. So it's not just customer success teams, of course. As I said, it's the whole company that has to contribute to that. So we could think about more of how the products directly can actually embed customer success within them, so that you don't have to rely on external resources, external documentation, external documentation and knowledge. So the products themselves have to build customer success into them, either through in-app guides, through chatbots, through probably connected customer portals, whatever. Um, and I think what's really important as a next step is for customers to be actually autonomous in measuring their own adoption and their own results, which is a consequence of adopting the software. I think customers just simply going forward want to be masters of their own destiny to do that. And we should be there as customer success, customer experience folks in the sideline. We're in the on the stage, we're in the kind of this in the stage wings, if you like, prompting them, but we're not hand holding all the time. And I think that's the next big challenge. And I think just to prove this shift that we're experiencing, I think always in business, we've always before been very much focused on the vendor side. Even, the 4 Ps that we're talking about before in business, we're always talking about products, price, place, promotion. That's so vendor focused, right? Whereas now with customer success and with the fact that customers just want to get on with it and be successful by themselves, I would replace those 4 Ps with something which is much more customer centric. And I would talk about the 4 Ps. This time I would talk about partnership, because now it really takes two to tango. We're in this partnership situation. I would talk about perception, because that the customer needs to have a positive sentiment around the product they've invested, the services which are associated to that, and to their association with your company as a brand. I would talk about performance, because they need to have this positive result, this positive outcome. And the last P again is promotion, like we had in the previous world, but this time the promotion, it's them promoting you as a company, right?
Right.
So that's what I would say, and I think that's what's at stake now for us in the customer success world.
It's gonna be an amazing change. I'm already looking forward to it. Like, we're already seeing an evolution of customer experience since the lockdown. So to see this evolution in action with in congruence with customer success, it's gonna be a very exciting time.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely exciting times, and I'm really excited to be part of this. And I just love doing this role. But I think we still got a lot of evangelization to do, Aish, right?
Definitely. So thank you so much, Sue, for giving us your time. Your insights were really valuable, and I know our audience is really going to enjoy this interview. We'll be back with a new episode with a brand new expert soon, so stay tuned, and we'll see you around for the next one.